All right. Good evening, everybody. This is a late night show coming at you, which I guess, this matter was so important that I figured we might as well do it. And as you'll hear from my panel this evening here, it is. So this story here it's a real life stories of an individual who has overcome and unimaginable challenges. In today's episode, we'll hear from a courageous woman who faced the daunting task of dealing with a narcissistic husband who struggled with addiction. The journey was made even more difficult as her children were sent into a spiral of parental alienation, substance abuse. To make matters worse, the corruption from the caseworker and judges only added to the already challenging situation. The father even ended up dating the caseworker, creating a biased atmosphere that made it difficult for the family to get the help they desperately needed. Despite all of this, our guest persevered, and will share her story and strength and resilience with us today. So, everybody, I'd like you all to meet Angie Miller. All right. This is you, Miss Miller. Sorry, I was looking down, but it was really mean and looking out and everything. That intro for you. Um, and we'll fix that one up after. But yeah, so me and you, I just got to get to know you a little bit here. And your story is, I don't want to say it's the same as everybody's or similar, because all of us have our own situations that are involved. Like we all have different parts of it, but it really seems like what we're getting in these stories are a very similar line of events. And with you, I don't know if you want to share a little bit, like in your line of events, like from the start where you were substantiated or indicted, I guess is in you. What, you're from Pennsylvania, correct?
That is correct.
Um, so yeah, I don't know what they call it there from the first levels, but why don't you just let everybody know just a little bit of like your base story and how you came about to even end up with this um, evil business entity of known as CPS.
Well, I got to know them when we had something inappropriate occur between two of my kids. And of course, then they have to be notified. And so at that point, they entered my life. And um, I started noticing that while they were interviewing him, they were going to the slinky zone with her kids. Now we were separated and divorced on our way to divorce at that point, so I could have cared less who he dated. But it was a little strange that why is a caseworker taking her kids when she's supposed to be interviewing him and she's the caseworker? So then it later came out that they had been dating, and she remained the caseworker on the case while dating and investigating him. Um,
Hmm.
it was not a case where you should be dating that person because sometimes you have to be concerned about who was violating somebody.
Yeah, what did you had a
Um,
term for that? What did you call that? What did you
with
call that? Love bombing? Love bombing, right? Was
yes,
that what it
love
was even
bombing.
called? Yes. All
Yes,
right.
he basically love bombed the caseworker, and he knew how. He was very good looking. He knew how to love bomb the caseworker. She fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And of course, as long as he had a use for her, she was never going to see the side that I saw. I was the crazy woman.
That's
And he hooked her very well. So now all of a sudden, you know, I am. He's admitted to getting high with my oldest child, um, who now has a drug problem and is sitting in the state pen. But and that stems back to dad getting high with him. She did not do her job as a caseworker by any way or mean. I mean, she basically had him sent away and not really getting the help that he needed. They had offered, I had got him into the Karen Foundation for a short term stay, and the father went so crazy over it. I mean, he almost ran over me. And at that point, they were like, we know that he has a drug addiction problem. That's where your child has it. And he fought getting him home off of that. But then later, the county was willing to pay for extended stay for my son, And my ex-husband put a stop to it, and this caseworker put a stop to it. Even though it was recommended by other people, he could have gone for a long-term stay. But of course, that means they're going to get into what led to the drug abuse, what issues. She put a
Right.
stop to that. She put a stop to a lie detector test that she should have never put a stop to, because my ex-husband could have been part of the abuse. So
Right.
all of a sudden she's dating him. And the first thing I know, now they're knocking at my house every morning at 8 o'clock. They're showing up. They're trying to get me for neglect. So I took a opportunity to move out of the county, knowing that, and this was pre computer days, kind of like, 2003, 2005, you didn't have the internet resources. But I was
Right.
able to sell my house and get that window of opportunity to take the youngest two kids and make a move and get the court's permission, because I agreed to let him have the older one. Well, I still went to court fighting for him. But, the court decided, because of his age with him, that he could go with his dad. Um, so I get out of the county, and I was smart enough to send a registered letter, um, with the date that I had moved, and they had to sign their signature for that, because before the internet, you actually had to call children and youth. So I actually had to call a few offices and, like, get, like, what's the timeline if I
Really
move?
you had to really communicate with people.
Yeah, you had to communicate with people back in those days.
Right.
So I found out it was 48 hours, and I left them go 45 days. That I'm waiting for my letter that I'm going to be indicated for neglect. And of course, we all know they don't have to give you a reason if it's based on their opinion. So you can just be indicated for neglect and have this child abuse
Right.
registry that affects employment, everything. So 45 days, right on the mark, I get my letter, and I have to compliment the agency that I went into the new county. um, was irate. They were beyond irate. I showed them where she had dated him, how they had filed an emergency petition because I supposedly was trying to get her fired, and they were going to take custody of my kids.
What
And then that case got
what was
dismissed.
what was the original, what was the light of day? Like what made them, what kind of absurdity were they coming to see what was going on at this point in your life? Like what brought them into that, before the caseworker and all of that? What were they there? An allegation of random phone call or
Oh,
something along those lines, or
well, it was that there had been inappropriate behavior between my son and daughter that you would only have
okay,
if somebody had been violated.
got you.
So
Okay.
that's why she should have
So it was
never
just
dated him in the first place.
right.
She should have
Okay.
never dated him.
Right.
Um, and, that happens in a lot of families, covers a whole
Of
broad
course.
range, but something's happened somewhere. So this was not a case where she should have dated him by any means.
Well, right. She should never have done that
Yeah.
regardless, but especially in a situation where you have, a relationship issue, a trust issue and
Yeah.
some sort of family internal problem. She definitely didn't need to um,
No,
add to the situation. And nor should she have, because the bias that this is creating in her investigation, right? What,
exactly.
what did you see?
And she canceled the
What
lie
kind of
detector
signs?
test
What,
to see who had done what
right,
to him. So that lie detector
right,
test was really important to me to know, just for my peace of mind, because the state trooper said to me, well, a child isn't born being a pedophile, they're taught. And I'm like, huh? You know? So at this point, something inappropriate has happened somewhere.
right,
And you've got to find that link. Well, we never did find that link. Now, later on, my son did come and tell me that I know things, and then I had memories come back from ages ago.
right,
So I did get my answers, but she stalled that. And
right. Which is,
why
hmm,
would you do that to somebody? All because he was so good looking? Like,
right.
yeah.
Your interest in your dating, or,
What about
that's
professional
number.
ethics
Right, because they're supposed to be there to try to
to
um,
help?
get the family establishment together and reunify, as
Yeah.
what they say that they're trying to do, to get the family unit back and running and function as a whole.
Yeah.
But that's obviously her intentions were from the start. I mean, regardless of what the family plan was for you guys, her intentions obviously were to get in your husband's pants for less of a say, like, unfortunately,
She
that's
didn't get
so.
too much.
And what did they do? What was her, yeah, what was her, you brought this to the attention to her supervisors,
And the
right?
county
Obviously, you
commissioners, because the
obviously,
county commissioners oversees children and youth. So I brought it to the county commissioners. I sent a letter to the judge, and that was before we had an emergency petition or anything filed. But the judge does oversee children and youth also. So the county
right.
commissioners and her supervisor. And when I had done that, all of a sudden I'm getting an emergency petition because they're trying to take the kids because I'm trying to cost her job. And that was just, as the judge put it that day in court, I was just this most horrible person, vile person, disgusting person. I listened to 4 hours of being degraded like that in a courtroom all morning.
Mhm.
And I was like, all I wanted was fairness. Look, everything is so biased at this point. She's dating somebody she's investigating.
Right.
And you have this judge just ripping me apart because now I went to the superiors and said that ethically this is not okay. So now I have a judge ripping me apart. And
Right, because now you've overstepped their
I
system.
overstepped their system. And I was threatened with full custody being given to my ex and lucky to have visitation at that point. So,
For something that you were not even directly involved with, and what are they trying to say at this point? You couldn't protect your children from jeopardy? Is that what they
yeah.
were kind of throwing at you?
But yet
Gotcha.
it was okay for him to be there and nothing against him when he even
Right,
witnessed
because he's
something
just as involved at
inappropriate
this
and
point.
just walked the other direction. And, here I am participating in counseling these behaviors. I'm seeing behaviors that's off the wall. And, I've got counseling for the kids. I'm participating, but he's out golfing and drinking with his buddies.
Right,
And here I am providing working with counselors, getting the kids on medicine, taking them where they need to be for doctor's appointments. He's not participating in any of it. And then you're going to come back and say, I'm guilty of neglect when I had no clue something happened. I mean, it happens in families every day. And that's the other thing is
of course
people
it
don't want
does.
to talk about it. When we don't talk about it, my son was a child. He was still a child.
Right,
He didn't deserve being sent away like he was. And that was wrong how she handled that, even because there was no need for him to be sent away like she did to him. None.
right. Well, clearly he probably already felt that feeling of, separation.
Yeah,
He obviously was doing what he had to do as a child to do what he could to protect and preserve himself and his
exactly.
feelings and his emotions. And then for them to just outcast him and say, okay, well, we're going to eliminate this problem
Yeah,
right now. We're just going to send him away and we're not going to get to the root of this because potentially at that point in time, it could have been your ex for all you knew. But so this caseworker
exactly.
was essentially
And,
just
and I still
protecting this.
question that. There's no saying just because I recall some memories doesn't mean that that frees my ex either, because I know the allegiance that my
Right,
kids have with their dad. And it's a very conditional love. If you cross any boundary, you will not have me, you will not have the love. And your mom's not going
right,
to, you know what I mean? They're afraid of losing the love from the unconditional parent, even though they know I love them no matter how horrible they are to me. I still love my kids. I might not like their behaviors, but I still love them and I'm still there for them. Um,
right.
so
I mean, would you be fair to say that he participated in parental
Oh,
alienation?
definitely. It is
Like
a
always
textbook
talking about you,
case.
saying that you were the worst thing
Textbook.
on earth, crazy.
Yeah. I mean, all the
Yeah.
the things that you're accused of, he would sit my daughter down on a chair when she had visits, and the caseworker and him would walk around her and say, "You have to say your mom's mental. You have to say your mom hits you all the time. You have to say she yells. She can't manage money. See, your mom's unstable because she can't hold down a job." No, every job I took, I made more money, but I had to work around the kids' hours. And that's
Hmm.
not being unstable. That's just being a good mom.
That's being a mom,
And,
right?
if I was selling cars and making good money, you were going after custody because you wanted me to pay you child support. That's the bottom line,
That's
you know?
that's it.
And it was a conflict of interest because here he is paying child support to me. Now this caseworker's married him. And of course, she doesn't want me getting $800 a month for the kids. I mean, come on, that was a big chunk of money.
Right, because that's coming out of her kitty.
That's
Yeah, that's
coming out
coming
of
out
her
of their
kitty.
money at their particular
So
business.
she used the court system every way she could. Like after I got moved over to the other county, and that county did a fantastic job of protecting me. Um, they basically threatened to have one hell of an investigation done on them. Or if they were going to indicate me for neglect, and they could indicate him, but that meant that she would be married to somebody that would be indicated, or they could drop everything. So they had to drop everything. The judge, after the hearing, found out that it was true she was dating him after he told me how highly he respects her and that he works with her, and anything she says, he highly respects everything she says, but he wouldn't transfer the case. I called my
Of course not.
attorney after I paid for all these hours that my attorney represented me, and my attorney says, "Oh, your case was completely dismissed." Yeah,
Huh.
my case was totally dismissed for that emergency
And that's
petition. Um,
that's
which it
I mean, that's a good relief. It's a relief, but on the same hand, you don't this is a problem that they
Yeah,
create. They've created a double-edged sword now. Like you don't want any more intrusion into your family.
exactly.
They've already done enough damage. So then this is a problem with a lot of parents that they get it. They're not, you just do whatever you say, what you have to say, you do what you have to do to get them out of your lives. Well, in this instance, they, you're probably feeling the same way when they said things are dismissed. But on the same hand, you still have an issue to resolve.
Yeah.
Not only that, but now you have a broken family.
Yeah.
You went into this with a husband and some kids trying to figure out what's going on from an allegation of something to now you have no kids. You've had to sell your house. Your kids are, upset with you. Your husband's dating a caseworker or married to one. Like you have all of these things. So this division of family services did just that. They did their goal. Like they came in and just
Yeah.
dropped a bomb on you and made you a ward of the state, I guess, at this point
Yeah.
now, because now you're having to try to find, situations to, you were out of money, you were out of your husband, you need to eat, you need to feed your kids, like they did exactly what they
Oh,
were.
yeah.
People don't say that because they're not awake to what's going on in this world, but in reality, that's what they did. They made a strong woman
Mhm.
have to depend on everybody else, and be made to feel that way, and
Yeah.
then stripped her of her kids too. It's
Yeah,
crazy,
because in the end, I
and
mean,
this is
he
going
does
on.
have them alienated, but it's been such a I mean, he was the good time dad because that he would go and that one day they could go do something fun. I had to save my money for the electric bill and my attorney because I didn't know when he was coming back, and that's the biggest mistake people make when they split for a divorce. I made the mistake of trying to keep the family home so that I was the family parent, the stability. And in the course of that, he got the retirement account, which had quite a bit in. So now he's got this unlimited resource of money that he can pull from. And here I am trying to manage a 5 bedroom home in the country. And it was hard.
Unreal.
Thank God I was always able, I did very well in sales. So at one point, I went and sold cars an hour away. It was an hour drive. And I made enough in a month and a half that I could pay 6 months of bills. But I had to quit because my kids started coming back from visits, and he had manipulated my dad into giving him the schedule. And I'm like, he doesn't want that schedule for a good reason, but you know how they manipulate. And he
Right.
got the schedule, and then my kids were coming back and they were getting in trouble because they couldn't tell dad what route I took home coming home from work. Well, I was coming over a mountain
Uh,
in the middle of nowhere, or it was a back road coming home. So I alternated my ways home because you know why he wanted to know that.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. Now, what would you say in the comparison of this whole situation? Your kids' mental stability and their presence before this, and before this caseworker's gotten a hold of this situation and turned your
Oh
life
my
upside
God.
down, opposed to the way that their heads had been spun around. And
Well, my next
what
oldest
did you
son,
notice or see?
well, the oldest one ended up, he's been in and out with severe drug issues. Um, and he ended up doing armed robberies. He didn't get the help he needed. He was denied extended stay Karen Foundation rehab help. Then he was entitled, because of going into the system, he was entitled to his education being paid for. But they didn't want to hand over their tax returns because they were afraid I would find out how much they made. So because of her
Right.
connections, he had to be pulled out of the the vocational school he attended that he had started to enroll in because they wouldn't hand over their taxes for him to get that education he was entitled
Unbelievable.
to. Then you have
Jesus.
the second son who feels that I abandoned him because even though I went to court to fight with him, he doesn't understand the situation going on. I was going to be indicated for child abuse if I stayed in that county in the grandparents' home that we loved. I was going to be indicated for child abuse. I knew it was coming. There was nothing I could do. I had to sell that house and I took the equity and I bought a single trailer and moved into a trailer park just across the county line. That's all I needed was to get across the county line. And then, I could go
Right.
from there what I needed to do. He feels that I abandoned him because his senior year, he had to go live with his dad. Now, mind you, she's a caseworker. And I forgot to tell you this part. So they're dating, and she has a house that's 45 minutes from where dad got custody. My son's a junior in high school, going into a senior year. He gets $5 a day to go up to the local pizza place to
Oh,
eat, and that has to include his drink. Okay.
yeah.
Dad's living with the caseworker, and he's living by himself at the trailer.
Oh my
And
God.
then in the wintertime, I called my attorney. I'm like, this kid doesn't have a winter coat. And my attorney's like, he went into court. He lied for his dad. Don't you dare go buy that for him. He has to see his dad for who he is. They did not even supply him with a winter coat.
Ugh. That must kill you as a parent. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Even if your kid's speaking out against you, and that is the truth, it's still your It's still your
Yeah,
child. It's still a part of you. You guys pump the same
yeah.
blood. That's your kid,
And
and you need
yeah,
to.
we would go out to eat at a buffet. And my youngest son was younger at the time and he didn't want to eat because he felt so guilty that his brother didn't have food at the house to eat. And here we are eating
Oh
at
my
all you could
God.
eat buffet.
Unbelievable.
And this was the caseworker. This was the caseworker who sat my daughter on a chair and told her to the point where she would come back rocking back and forth. Her whole body would go numb.
Oh,
And she would say, I'm so afraid I'm going to believe what they're trying to tell me. I don't want to hurt you, mom. I'm so afraid I'm going to believe the lies that they keep walking around and telling me. I have to repeat them. I have to repeat them. Her whole body would go
right.
numb.
Setting her up. They probably made her like a puppet,
Yeah.
right? They made her sit there and make sure you tell your mom it's.
They wanted
So
her to tell the
your
court.
poor children don't even know if they're saying it's red, but it's
Yeah.
green. It's red.
Well,
It's
they
green.
wanted
It's
her to
red.
tell
What's
the
green? I don't
judge. They
even know.
wanted her to go into the courtroom and say it. And
Mm.
so, there it was. She took 27 Tylenol and she meant to kill herself. She counted 27 Tylenol out of a Tylenol
Oh my
container,
God.
took them, put the container back on the shelf, and she heard her stepsister and her brother laughing and one of the friends it was over and she started acting funny and thank god the stepsister said, Sarah, why are you acting so funny? What's up with you? I don't understand this. You're acting really weird. And finally she started crying because she realized, I guess my youngest son asked her a question about a math problem and she realized she wouldn't be there to help him the next day. And she said she took 27 Tylenol. And at that point,
Ugh.
we were within 15 minutes of her dying from doing that.
Oh my
And that was
goodness.
the day after we got the phone call because it got so bad that whenever I would go to drop her off for a visit, she would become hysterical so bad that I would have to go back. As soon as I got within 7, 8 miles where I had to the main road cell phone service, she was so hysterical that they didn't know what to do with her at that point. Well, that's because you were
Oh my
trying to
gosh.
brainwash her in that. And she's
Yeah.
fighting it, so she would be so hysterical, I would have to go pick her up, and then they said she didn't have to come. Well, all of a sudden, I've got my son graduating his senior year, and now all of a sudden, you need the custody of these two kids back, the youngest two, because you don't want to have that support increase. And
Right.
so all of a sudden, I'm getting a phone call from my attorney that I'm being accused of parental alienation. Now, the caseworker's coming up with these terms because he's not
Of
capable.
course.
He's not
Right.
capable. I mean,
He's just trying to figure out what's up and down for God's
yeah.
sakes, like
And I figured out
he's,
everything he did by what I was accused of because he had three fingers pointing back to him. I mean, he trashed
hmm
my name in the community. I mean, I had sold real estate, did daycare, but now everybody knew me as a drug addict. I never touched drugs a day in
Right.
my life, but all of a sudden I'm finding out
Yep.
that, when you stopped your child from going to the Karen Foundation and you almost ran over me that day when you found out you came to pick him up and I had got him admitted without your consent, I found a way to do it. He almost ran over me that day. He was so angry. And, you know, of course, I was histrionic and dramatic in the courtroom to the judge about that. That wasn't abuse. I'm
Yeah, the
dramatic.
judge. How was the judge's treatment towards you when you would talk about the case to them? Because obviously these caseworkers are also intertwined with
Oh,
these
yeah.
judges. I mean, did you see the judge
Oh,
reflect that
yeah.
back at
He
you, like the
informed me
disgust?
that he thought very highly of her opinion, that he worked with her and she was very credible. In other words, I was a nobody. So I was a piece of shit. I mean, that's just how he made me
Yep.
feel. And he
Yep.
put it right out there
Absolutely.
that, whatever she said, he didn't look at me as a case coming in that, you know, I wasn't a case coming into him that was a divorce case now. I was even though I moved counties, I wasn't even living in that county. I was a child abuse case coming into him because he saw her as
Yep.
the authority figure that he believed her. So like the custody
Yep.
evaluations of even though my daughter took the 27 Tylenol, almost died, we get to Brook Lane and they tell my husband he's got to back off of this custody. And they were livid to find out that, he sits there and he says, well, I have all the power because I have all the connections and I married a caseworker. So she might as well face it. She's coming to live with me. This is why she took
Right.
27 Tylenol. And
That's just
she's
crazy.
completely fragile. And yet you won't drop this custody. The caseworker won't drop it. In fact, now she has convinced the judge we need to use this certain psychologist. They're running me all over with my kids were diagnosed ADHD. They had their diagnosis because we had in-home services. We had multiple counselors give them diagnoses. We had psychiatrists give them diagnoses, medicine for years. And all of a sudden, this caseworker is having me go to all her people that she works with, and they're trying to take the kids off meds. They're doing all this, and Brooke Lane is like, how could she date him during this time? Like, we're going to report her. She needs to not be working in social work after what just went on down here. And I'm like, good luck because she's not licensed. None of these caseworkers are licensed caseworkers. So therefore, you can't take their license. It's up to the
Right.
supervisor that has it.
They're not held to accountability. They got nothing to be
There's
accountable
no
for. They're just
accountability. It's up to the
rogue people with
supervisor.
a
So if
badge,
they want to date the person that they're investigating, they can do it. It's up to their bosses what they can
Yeah.
do.
It's just
And there's
amazing
nothing
to
you can
me.
do about it.
No,
And I
it's
mean,
just
these
amazing to
medical
me.
professionals were irate. Oh my God, they didn't know what to do next.
Right. I mean, this is
Um,
supposed to be about protecting children in this situation. This is not supposed to be about um, hiding or disguising real problems. It's not supposed to be about stealing family values and relationships. It's not supposed to be about any of this. And that seems to be the only thing that I see here with what's going on with you is caseworkers' lust towards your ex-husband. I mean,
yeah.
in
Now
reality,
we
that's
were
all it's
already
here.
split when they met, and I didn't care that she dated him because I was like,
Right.
"You're not getting a treasure, honey."
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I knew
One woman's
I
trash is
you
another
know
one's treasure, right?
yeah, I knew how he treated me when we dated, and as soon as I said I do, I knew I was working 20 out of 24 hours. Nothing I did was good enough, and all of a sudden, this person that love bombed me, now I was at the time I didn't know the terms. I didn't know what a narcissist was, but now I do
Right.
know. I was severely mentally abused. At 99 pounds, I was told I was fat and ugly. That was
Oh my
daily, that
God.
nobody else, he actually made fun of me with the kids that if he wouldn't have married me, I was so ugly, nobody else would have. Um, these
Unbelievable.
are things that he did with the kids, and along with getting high with the oldest two boys. Luckily the one doesn't have the gene and he could walk away from drugs. The other one had the
Well, that's
genetic component and he could not walk away from drugs, and he's had one hell of a life because of it.
right.
um, and I feel like this caseworker, she should be in jail for what she did to our family.
Of course she
She
should
should
be.
be
No
in
doubt about
jail
it.
because you kept him from getting help for extended stay at the Karen Foundation. There was a point where he had a high fever and he laid all week when his dad had custody of him. And He actually had his eardrum ruptured several times that week. He actually lost
Oh
partial
my God.
hearing when he had gone, the oldest, when he had gone to live with his dad. And at that point, finally that weekend, he took him to the doctors. And the doctor said it was the worst case of neglect he had ever seen.
Right.
Um, and
And that's with the caseworker living with them, right?
Well, she wasn't living with him yet, and I'm not sure there was some other calls that went in on him, but you had these young caseworkers that he would bat his eyes. Everything was dismissed from that, even though the doctor said it was
Of
the worst
course.
case of neglect, medical neglect. He lost partial hearing. My son just had open heart surgery in prison. It did not come from drug use. His valve was damaged from a high fever, and they wanted to know when he had rheumatic fever. Mom, when did I have a high fever for a long period of time? Well, I could tell you that exact incident when it happened. He just had to have valve replacement surgery because a high fever did it. There is not one doubt in my mind it was during that week of neglect with his dad. And his dad
Wow.
bragged to me, well, I don't take the kids to the doctors for every little fart like you do.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, only when he has a long term problem now because you let his blood boil so much it destroyed his heart valve.
Yeah.
But that's not neglect. And you are a terrible person for
And I'm a
attending to
terrible,
take
and
your
he
kids
has
to
the
the
kids
doctors.
also
Yes.
convinced, and she was part of convincing them that because I put them in Brook Lane, I put them into a mental facility, and I was a horrible mom because I put them into a mental facility. And who does that to their kids? Well, first off,
Right.
when my daughter overdosed like that, that wasn't a choice for me at that point. And
Right.
I've tried explaining that to my daughter now because my daughter and I were best friends. She was so afraid of, believing the lies. And she did try to fight the alienation. I give her that. And at 28, dad was pressuring her to do something to set me up. And I should have
Wow.
recognized that when she took an overdose of 2 bottles of pills, she spent 3 days on life support at age 28. And they pulled her off life support. She goes up to the mental health floor and she wants to come home. And the very next day, my ex husband got her home. She's not on medicine for bipolar. She's not medicating her depression. She does
Oh
have the
my
medical
gosh.
marijuana card, which, from what I'm
Yeah.
reading, if you don't treat the bipolar and you only use it, you do go into
That's
psychosis.
right.
Um, so she hates me right now. It's like everything that he has brainwashed into her. I've had other people say to me that, she's concerned about Olivia being, or my daughter being here that's 11 and she couldn't save her. Um, and it's the same stuff that I know he said. So I know it's the brainwashing has come through because of her mental illness now. And I think she tried.
Right.
I think this overdose when she was 28, she did not want to do what he wanted her to do, but she wanted the love of her dad.
Yeah. And
And
this just goes to show, like how long these
yeah,
effects of these things go on with you. I mean, 28 years old.
yeah. And she
At
had
28
planted
and she
seeds
still is hurt.
along the way, like trying to get his approval. Now I see, like, my son that I raised, all of a sudden he started acting weird towards me, and I didn't understand what was going on. And then the neighbor and I had this really big blow up because she took care of her mom with Alzheimer's. I took care of mine. So, you're side by side, you're both caregivers, they're both in
Right.
bad shape. We were really close. And then one day I go over and I'm being accused of not to the doctor. I couldn't get my mom to see the doctor that day, but I was stopping over there. He didn't have the records. And so I walk in and it had to come from her that, look, she's not giving her drinks. She's keeping food from her. She's not giving meds. And this doctor jumps all over me. And I was irate and hurt and just like, here you are. And yet, you aren't perfect taking care of your mom. Here I am. I don't leave my mom unattended at all. Your mom lays here and you guys run all over the place, with nobody here while she's an invalid. So, yeah, I did make a phone call because it's like we were best friends and then you just shot me down. Well,
Yeah.
my daughter had been planting seeds, I think, all along because when this incident happened, they called in her house number because even though she was outside working, they didn't think we would mend our friendship the way that we did.
Right.
So it was a dead giveaway that my daughter was involved. But here, my daughter had actually been telling people I was trying to withhold meds and food and drink from my mom because I couldn't handle
What?
taking care of my Alzheimer's mom.
Oh my god.
So people thought I was trying to kill my
Oh my
mom. Now,
god.
understand, my mom was diabetic. Somebody with Alzheimer's, you have to be able, they have a right to say no to their meds. And all you do is get a notebook and you document, you don't tear out any pages, you call your local agency, you call the nurse that comes in. Everybody's notified of the days, the attempts that you made, and there's a format you follow. But also, mom couldn't remember she just had a Pepsi. So, and
Right.
not only that, but the Diet Pepsi was having the diarrhea effect. I had messes to clean. Her
Yeah.
sugar's bottoming because now she's eating all this candy that everybody thought it was just so much fun to bring her candy and let her have what she wants. No, she's diabetic.
Right.
I'm
You
trying to
guys are
keep
making
her
her
on a
more ill.
diet. I'm not trying to kill my mom. I'm trying to make sure she follows the diet. It eliminates the
Right.
messes. All these messes lead to UTIs. Then she hallucinates when you have UTIs.
Yeah.
I'm the one that's here
That's
taking
true.
care of her. You guys come in. She hands you over money on a day she's coherent, and now the money's gone and you guys are nowhere to be found, and I'm
Right.
providing the care 24/7 of my
Mm-hmm.
mother. And so now you feel guilty and you're saying I'm trying to kill mom. But in a
Yeah.
way, it was little things that she was doing that she, I think, was trying to get her dad's love and affection, because yeah, he didn't really have love and affection for her
Right.
because she wouldn't lie for him. And I think he pressured and pressured. So finally we had this incident that occurred September the 2nd of 21. I had some appointments in the afternoon. I left a 17-year-old babysit two foster kids, and everything was fine during that time. However, I was definitely set up because I had come back with chicken, took a bite of chicken. There's a kid in front of me, 18-month old, and then I turn and he's gone. And I'm like, okay, where is he? Now, my granddaughter was 11, and the strange thing was anytime we were outside, she loves the little kids, so she mothers them,
Yeah.
takes care of them. But if she wanted to play and not be bothered with them, grandma, hey, I'm going to play. And we were always outside with the kids. My neighbor that we had the problem with, she actually went to testify in court on my behalf because she was home that day, took a vacation day, and there was nobody yelling for 30 minutes that there was a kid on the road. And
Right.
so we mended fences, and that's when I found out what she had been told. And she believed my daughter was so convincing that I was trying to kill my mom. That's what caused the whole
Right.
fight between us. Anyway, they
Wow.
gave her house number, which is a dead giveaway, that she was involved. Plus, she had the code to turn off my cameras, that I couldn't look back at
Right.
my cameras because, we've always had cameras around because of the caseworker and that incident.
Right.
So, but the strange thing is my granddaughter says, "Oh, I turned around and he was gone." But I turned and I was like, "Hey, where'd he go?" And my grandson's like, at the time he was 5 or 6, and he's like lightning, red hair. You can imagine he's the lightning kid. And he goes running out and he's like, "Grandma, there's a man holding him, yelling." And I come out. Now, later, when I asked, the man, when he was found in the yard holding him, was in the middle of the yard. By the time I'm 2, 3 seconds behind, he almost had him to this classic truck where he was ready to put this child into the truck.
Oh my god.
And I looked at the guy, and there was like this death stare between us. And finally, after several minutes, he said, he was on the road. And I'm kind of like not knowing what's happening. You almost had him in your truck. But then, he left, and I'm still trying to process it. And of course, the other little girl had woke up from her nap, and we had like a process of like walking. You have your routine you do with the kids outside every
Correct.
day.
Right. Yeah.
Because she was 2 at the time, and this other one was 18 months, and they that's the other thing. Like when you're outside, where the kids gravitate. Like nobody goes out front because all the toys are at the back. And not only that, my
Right.
husband cuts the grass. Had he gone out front, he had short legs, he would have had grass on him. But,
Right.
you're not processing all of this because I never expected my daughter would be part of setting me up. I never.
Right. You're not in the business of being investigative to yourself.
Yeah. So, when children and youth rolled in, it was like 10 minutes after that. And I'm like, there wasn't even time to make a phone call from when this happened. And of course, I blame my
Right.
neighbor for calling because, hey, she's getting even with me for. And come to find out, she was devastated when we lost the kids because she missed them so much and she loved the kids. She has been
Oh,
devastated over it. And she went to testify for me, and we're back to being good friends. We know now that my daughter was just trying to alienate me from everybody, just like her dad always did.
right, right. Oh,
But the caseworker from the state had to investigate because when you're a foster parent, you work with your local agencies. Now, the local
right.
agencies here that we work with, I will say, is very good, very fair. They're about reunification. So I have to give them credit in our county. But when they came, they know me and they were like, oh, well, just, a kid can go out on the road, make sure it don't happen again. But when the state called the next day, I did not realize it was not the same complaint. So what I'm thinking happened the day before was just to get me to say that he was on the road.
Yep.
That and I
Oh,
didn't distinguish between that because they don't give you any information. So this girl from the state comes in, and I figured it had been reported from the local agency because they're supposed to report it to the state. Well, here they knew me, and they were like, "We know this house. You have an alarm system. A kid can run out like that." They never reported it to the
right.
state. So I didn't know that till we get to the hearing because I didn't even know what time of day this supposedly happened. I just took my bank statement along. I took pictures of the property. I took my neighbor as a witness since she had a vacation day. I took the school nurse because I babysat for her. And plus, she was familiar with the kids that we had in the past with foster care, how difficult they were, to know that I wasn't neglectful. Um, but this caseworker indicated me for neglect. And we were in the process of adopting 4 children who needed to be adopted. It was not an iffy case. This was
So even after all this stuff that you've been
significant.
through, you still want to reach your heart out and try to help these kids that are really in need.
Yeah, we actually took our own money and put 3 bedrooms upstairs before we got into foster care because I had gone out on disability and I was used to 60, 80-hour weeks, but I could not be released with my back in the shape it was. And with a lymphedema arm, I'm kind of a threat to hire. So we decided, I mean, I have to be a busy person. So
Right,
mentally, I function. My back is on a different page.
right.
But we actually used our own money, and on the Cape Cod house, my husband did his overtime money, an inheritance he got when his dad died. I had an ESOP account when I went out on disability. We paid to do the
Mhm.
upstairs that we have 3 bedrooms that is equal to 2,000 square feet to put the teens. We did it to take teens, a teen mom. We have 3 huge bedrooms up there, and then we have 3 bedrooms on the first floor. So we put our money into it. Didn't come from the stipend. It didn't come from the kids. We did our house wanting to reach
You did
out
it
to help
right.
others. Um, and all of a sudden, this caseworker from the state, the other county agencies like, please don't pull these kids. Please don't separate them. They've been through so much. We didn't think they would form a bond with anybody. She's so close. The
R-
2-year-old, they thought had autism, and within 6 months, I had her above average, no signs of autism. The
Nice.
kids had other issues, and we had surpassed getting them the help that they needed with that. Their bonds were so strong. And this caseworker on October the 9th indicated me for child abuse by neglect that we lost all the kids.
Oh my
We
God, that's
got to
a bummer.
court because of COVID. They are backed up. They have no time limit. They can take as long as they want. And this is for biological parents losing their children too over a
Yeah.
false allegation because of COVID. The courts are backed
Ugh.
up. And I don't understand. I worked at a yogurt plant and I worked 6 months without a day off, 12-hour days to make yogurt. But here's children's lives. And you say, oh, it's 4 o'clock. I'm checking out. I'm a judge. That's freaking
Yep.
bullshit.
No weekends.
No
No
weekends.
weekends. No
No,
holidays.
no
No.
holidays. And yet it was more important to make yogurt and get that shipped out that I worked
Yep.
those long days. And here's the kids. And you think because you have a degree, you're too good on that judge's
Yep.
bench to sit there
Yep.
and put in the time. Or you're an attorney and you don't want to put in that time for these kids. That's a disgrace in itself that you can
Yep.
say
It
that
sure
you're
is.
so far behind. This happened September 2nd of 21. May 16th of 2022 was my hearing. And that's when Yin and Yang goes in, and they had to hurry up and leave because they had to get back to work. So they testified that from 4:30 till 5 o'clock, they yelled and yelled, and they couldn't knock on the door because I had an ankle biter dog. No,
Right.
I have. I don't know if you can see Jackson. I'm not.
Oh yeah, there he is. He's a
That is
cute little
not an
fella.
ankle biting dog. It
Nope,
bites
nope.
ankles.
No, that's not.
And
Yeah.
that's why they couldn't knock at the door. So that was false. That Franklin County Children and Youth was actually sitting here because the teen foster child apparently got in on the planning. And she wasn't supposed to call anybody, but she always bragged, oh, when I can get somebody in trouble, I call the local agency. Thank God she called the local agency because they didn't know she did. That's how Franklin County was sitting here, and nobody knew they were sitting here from 4:30 to 5,
Ah,
the exact same time that these yin and yang claimed. They looked at their watch, they knew how important it would be.
yeah.
And so when I'm showing all this evidence and the neighbors testifying, I was on a vacation day from work, nothing happened, you
Right.
know, nobody was out there yelling. They said to the caseworker, did you call the local agency? And so they said to her, did you call the local agency and did you ask about Mrs. Miller? Anything against her? Anything happened that day? Oh, well, I called the agency and there was numerous phone calls about their address. Now, mind you, we took teen kids. Okay, so when you take in teen children, guess what happens? You're going to have, and they go on respite. The
Right.
girl that we had went completely wild at her respite house. So all these phone calls going in would go back to my address. That's part of the foster care system completely. So she had never asked specifically about me. She had no clue that from 4:30 to 5 Franklin County Children and Youth was sitting here. And then they tried to turn it on me that I should have never left a 17-year-old babysit.
But
Well, first
the,
off,
the
she's
situation, you
17
just can't
years
win. No matter
old.
what you're doing, you just can't win.
No. And here's the thing, the law says that legally she could. Now, had she been labeled a therapeutic foster child, they don't even know their own laws. If she was a therapeutic foster child, I could not have left her babysit. Positively, no way. But because she was not therapeutic, the law says that she was allowed to. That's a parenting decision. That should not have been even brought up. But they're trying to find something now to say I was neglectful because we just proved
Of
that yin and
course.
yang lied in your courtroom. But meantime, I walk in
Yep.
and say, I've never seen these guys in my life. And my attorney
And
says, you
who's
can't say that because if you say that, you'll get a third-degree misdemeanor, a fine, and you can go to jail because they've already said that this happened. And then I supposedly had said, isn't it a shame you got out again? And I would never say that about a kid, ever. However, when you think about how this caseworker has come after me all these years, from me having to go for psychological evaluations with somebody she worked with to all her counselors that she picked,
yep.
okay, and in order to be indicated for child abuse by neglect, it has to be prolonged and repeated. By throwing that
Right.
statement in there,
Yep.
it had to come from somebody that knew the law. It had to.
Hmm.
And then they kept saying, well, there's numerous reports of kids of him being out on the road. And I'm like, it never happened with me. So all I could say, it must have happened when his mom still had custody. Well, then you left her babysit. Well, how is this even right? Because I'm now testifying on something that didn't even happen, but I'm being told I can't say that I don't know these two guys because neither one is the guy that handed me the kid. They're saying they had their cars blocked in the middle of the road with flashers on for 30 minutes on a busy highway. And my attorney says, so how many cars went past on this busy highway while you had your cars blocked in the middle of the road? Oh, maybe one, but it's a busy highway. No, I think they were going to put him in this truck and take him up to Route 30, the next block, which is a busy highway, and say that he had walked up
Well,
there.
he was going to run out into traffic or whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that was the whole plan. That was their whole entire plan.
Unbelievable.
but I just happened to walk out and catch it before it went down because he was almost ready to be put in the truck. And the judge got mad at me when I said about the stare of the guy. Like it went through me, this guy staring at me, like
Right.
didn't know what to say. And you know how you catch something that shouldn't be caught? I mean, it was
Right.
like a death stare, a coldness. It just like, oh my God, I don't like, I felt so uncomfortable. And then he stuttered.
Oh, Kelly.
And when I said about that reaction, and no, I did not say that, the judge jumped all over me. Here's a guy that saved your kid from getting hit, you know? And it's like, I'm trying to tell you, this isn't how it went down, but I have to
Right.
do it in a roundabout way. So then we come out from the hearing after we disprove all of this, and I get this email or Facebook message from this girl who says, "Do you know my brother?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I talk to everybody, so God only knows." And I look it up, and here's the guy that testified, but his best friend is the name of the witness. And that's, they didn't even check identification. He testified he was his best friend under a false name.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So then I start researching where they work and doing my Facebook research, and I find out they don't work where they said they did. Now, supposedly they work at the same place. They were on their way home, and this was a shortcut coming home that the caseworker could have verified. However, when you GPS it from where they originally said they worked, you come out at the other side of
Yeah.
the light. Why would you cross a busy major highway only to go down and have to pull
Right.
out 1 mile
To
later?
turn. Right.
If you GPS it, it doesn't come out. Secondly, when I got on Facebook, I could tell you
Right.
they did not work where they said they did because the one had a tree dropped on his car by his boss. So I report this, and my attorney says, "Oh, but no new information can be presented because it's after the fact. And if you lose and we appeal it, we can only just submit the closing briefs from your hearing." But here's the problem with the closing brief: the state's
Didn't have the other
attorney,
information.
okay, that we beat her up and made her look like crap in there because they didn't do their job, she refused to do the closing brief, and she used medical reasons as the excuse. So they appointed an attorney who wasn't even at the hearing. And she said, "I left the kids unattended with a 17-year-old all day." And that's completely false. Then my attorney had, I was indicated by Franklin County Children and Youth when the paper says it's Central Region. As a foster parent, you cannot be indicated by a local agency. It has to go by the state because of the conflict. However, this whole thing reeks of somebody in the system knowing that
Yep.
this statement, how it all went down, was perfect to set me up. It was perfect.
Yeah.
I mean,
And people just don't think that that exists. They don't believe that this tinfoil hat
yeah.
wearing group of us that are sitting there saying, crying, woe is us as parents, because, we're obviously guilty because we did something wrong, which is not the chance. I mean, CPS gets it wrong 87, 89% of the time. I mean, what other job in the world can you have that your percentage levels are like that, for the opposite way?
Oh,
And then as us as parents, like, oh, they must be terrible parents. They must have done something. No, we didn't. You guys are ruining our family and our
oh, my
reputations. And
daughter didn't want to live anymore. My 11-year-old biological daughter, she didn't want to live anymore. And then after I got indicated, it was so clear cut my daughter was involved that, and so I had basically raised my granddaughter that was 12 and her son that was 7, and she's the one that had to break down, that she convinced all the other ones that, and this is the other thing in Pennsylvania, only certain people are mandated reporters. So believe it or not, we did
correct.
have a case where one of our first foster kids, the neighbor knew how badly abused his kid was being. And when they showed up
Mhm.
at her door on false allegations from somebody else calling on her, she mentioned, "Oh, well, you need to go over there because this is what is occurring." And it was one of the worst cases of child abuse ever. But she didn't get in any
Wow.
trouble because only certain people are mandated. So when my daughter had her breakdown and she wasn't in her right mind, there was some significant things I had to report as a mandated reporter. Well, then that got
Right.
turned around that, "See, mom's trying to take my kids from me. She's going to take your kids." So
Revenge. Yeah, you're out on revenge now.
my one son won't even give me the address of where he lives. The youngest one that has 2 kids. The kids that I raised, and the crazy part was, my ex-husband wanted my daughter when she was 17 and got pregnant to have an abortion. No, I was a single
Ugh.
mom and I still bought formula. My husband, I have now babysat that she could finish school. We bought all the formula, all the diapers. We
Hmm.
took care of the child. We took care of when you come home pregnant again to somebody else before you got back with your ex-husband. We
Right,
took care of you. We left you live here. And now we don't get to see any of them. My daughter came home from the hospital and my granddaughter was turning 2. She was with her every day of her life. And now we're not allowed to see those kids. And of course, the other 2 grandchildren, well, mom got indicated and dad always said she was a danger to kids, so it must be
yeah,
true. So she lost her nieces, her nephews. We
ugh.
both had to go into counseling.
Of course,
And then they
spun right
put my
sideways.
picture, um, we know it was my daughter and her friend that was involved in setting me up, that the one friend has custody. Well, she adopted the 2 kids that we were supposed to, 2 of the 4. And they put my picture that I was indicated and that the state finally got it right and I should have criminal charges. I should be going to jail and da 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 da. And it was all false. Facebook wouldn't take it down. But in the meantime, my 11-year-old who used to do cheerleading wouldn't cheerlead last year. She won't this year.
Right,
Like, she's in a shell. What they've done to her is just pathetic. And, I'm having to wonder, are they going to come take her from me? What kind of lie could you make up next
right.
that you could come take her and destroy us over it?
It's
It's
just
ridiculous. And, I worry about that all the time. We're very protective with her. We're
right.
very,
How are you even living your life in a positive direction in a loving and nurturing manner to help these other children out? And now your constant concern is they're going to come again. They're coming again. They're coming again. You're doing
yeah,
nothing wrong. And this is what parents don't understand. You could be the best parent in the world. These people don't care. This is about the money.
they do
This
not care.
has
It's about
nothing.
the money, it's about the system. In
Yep.
my case, it was once that caseworker, and honestly, I think she blames me for him changing and mistreating her, not understanding she was love bombed. She doesn't understand what a narcissist is like.
Right.
He love bombed her when
Hmm.
he didn't have a need for you. It wasn't all the pressure from everything at my end, or him thinking I was so bad of a parent. It was the fact he didn't need you anymore.
Yeah. It was his. It was his show. Without you,
Yeah.
you're not. He has no show. So hey, it's game over for him
Yeah.
now. You know.
When they told him he could not go back in the courthouse because, when we used the court appointed evaluator, and all of a sudden, here's the first evaluation you're ordering to be destroyed. It says I'm above average. And now this one practically says I'm mentally retarded. I'm a bad parent. The other one said
Yeah.
I was a great parent. And you ordered that to be destroyed. You didn't realize I snuck down and got it from the pathonetary's office and said, hey, we need this for the second half of court. And even though the court paid for it and I wasn't entitled to it, I got it. And then I took it
Good
to
for
an
you.
independent evaluator who, once the psychological review board looked at it, he almost lost his license. The
Oh,
judicial
it has.
review board, had I had the money to pay for the transcripts, that judge would be just barred today.
Yeah. Oh, what a,
Yeah.
just I don't even know what
Yeah.
to say. Really, this is just such a horrible. There's nothing good that comes out of the end of these stories. To be perfectly
No.
honest, like
And
there's
she built
nothing.
him up with so much power. She built him up
Hmm.
that now he thinks he can get away with anything.
Yeah, and a narcissist doesn't need that buildup as it is.
Oh,
Like
no.
they already are. They already are selfly proclaimed that they're important. Like they're already. Oh, I'm this and this is I'm godly. Pretty much is the way that they act. And without me, you're nothing. And this that like they're just so
Yeah.
they don't need any more blowing up the head to make them to function in the world.
And then they
And
attach their
the
flying
system.
monkeys and they know who to target with the
Yep.
flying monkeys, like my sister,
Yep.
registered nurse, mental health nurse. Oh,
Yep.
and created a rift there that now they manipulate. I'm sure they manipulate her. And when it's all said and done, I bet you in
Yep.
the end, if I can find out the full details, that there was
Yep.
probably a call from a retired mental health nurse saying that, oh, she's just not, you can't let her with her health. You can't let her. She's just this horrible person. That way they would have
Yep.
somebody credible backing. But when the
Of
caseworker
course.
was asked, oh, well, how did you come up with the decision to indicate her? And she said, well, Mrs. Miller's, I just determined that their story was more credible than Mrs. Miller's. However, if you got
Yeah.
on PA documents and you looked up the name of the one witness, he had to where he provided underage drink alcohol for underage minors. But yet he
Yes.
was more
Good.
credible than somebody that gave how many
Of
years
course.
and did their house for foster care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just amazes me.
And then
It just
they,
amazes me.
they acted like we were going to lose everything because we didn't have all this money coming in for all these kids. Well, when you went to the grocery store with me, that stipend money didn't go too far. Till we paid for, the extra cost. We took them camping. We took them everywhere. We didn't use respite like most people. Those kids went on vacation. Those kids had Adidas sneakers. They had Nike sneakers. They had name brand clothing. They
Yep.
had activities they were in. We were looking for a tutor for the one to get his grades up. That came out of the stipend money. We were doing it because we loved those kids. And it seems like the foster parents in the system that love the kids, they want you gone out of the system. They don't want, and the
Yeah.
ones that want to adopt kids out of love, they don't want you. I
Mm-mm.
just had one of our other foster families. They were a foster family for 32 years, had a teenage child that kept saying they were going home for the summer. They were going to be home by the summer. And when they said no, because you're still working, this is the projected date, all of a sudden they accused her son of doing something inappropriate. And he's sitting in jail. They have $20,000 now to defend their son that was
Unreal.
accused of something. And the
Oh my
agency
God.
said, well, you'll never be a foster parent again because you'll always take your son's word.
Unreal.
It's unreal. They're not even understanding the manipulation of the teenagers that's had to survive
Mm,
in the system. They
uh,
don't even understand the manipulation. They don't care to, and they don't want the good foster parents that spend the money on the kids.
nope.
They don't want
Nope.
us. I can tell you that right now because we left one agency. We would go in and I would go in to get the details of a placement or take paperwork in. So you might have a
Hmm.
sibling group. Well, we had 3 bedrooms empty upstairs. We might have an opening for 3 kids to keep that sibling group together, which is what you always do first.
Yep.
Believe it or not, they would separate the sibling groups because, oh, well, we have this foster family that hasn't had any kids. And this one foster family was like 75 years old. They shouldn't even have been a foster family.
Huh.
He couldn't hear. So they took these 2 really well behaved kids and sent them down to the middle of nowhere where there wasn't even cell phone service, 60 miles from their school on a back road. And they split up the sibling
Mm,
group when there was 2 of us that had homes, that we had beds for to
uh,
keep the family together, that they could
right.
participate in activities, have their friends close.
Hmm.
There's so much misappropriation of, you've got not
Yep.
just children and youth making money, but the private agencies that run the foster care. Oh, well, we got to make sure this foster parent has, and we got to place these kids and break up the groups so that we get the most money. And
Hmm.
we saw that end of it. We left that
Uh,
agency. But the crazy part is, here we are with this home that we're buying, and we constantly had to show our income that we weren't getting rich off of the foster kids. But then turn around and there's other foster parents that are using the food bank,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
don't even have money to get a birthday gift for
No proof of
somebody.
income. No nothing.
Can't,
Living in slum.
yeah. And
Criminal
yet,
records. Drug addicts.
yeah. And here we are, because my husband works overtime. We work together. I make home cooked meals. We do a lot of things to save. And I have disability from how many hours I worked before. And you're
Yep.
looking at us and saying, well, you got to keep showing your income so you're not getting rich. But here's somebody else that rents a place that needs all kinds of
This is
work done to it. Our house is fairly new. And I'm just like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
nope.
None. It's like we
Uh,
don't fit the mold of the foster parent they're looking for.
no, no, you don't, because you're a hardworking family. You're just listen. They put it on a line so that you're just enough. You're not quite enough to be able to spend the top dollar to defend yourself with the best money lawyers, best money, yes, best lawyer money can buy, and you make too much so you can't defend them with a public pretender, which you don't want to have on your side anyway, because they just walk you down the path. You're right in there. You are the white median, white picket fence, good family, good genes, all together family that they attack. That's what they do.
And they
Like you're
destroy
just,
you because we have
yep,
10,000 on a credit card because I wasn't
yep,
sitting on a registry for something that did not happen, knowing
yep,
that it was a setup. When
absolutely.
I realized it was a setup, I didn't want to believe my daughter was in on it. But when I walked into the courtroom, I had to face it. And then the other discrepancy was that this caseworker didn't call any of the kids that were playing outside to testify. But all of a sudden,
Yep.
she wanted to do hearsay of my granddaughter, who she said was 14. And I looked at the judge and said, "My granddaughter's 11." And he's like, "How did you get that date wrong?" Well, I can tell you because they wanted her to be more credible. So my granddaughter does look older,
Right.
and she was the only one with a different story. But they wouldn't let her
Oh,
say the different story because we also have the water authority collects the water payments across the street. I even
yeah.
called them and I had talked to the other neighbor. Did your dogs go crazy barking? Yeah, I called the water authority. Hey, did you see a kid on the road? They're like, "What are you talking about?" Because there's trucks going and coming. So there would
Right.
have been
Yep.
somebody going in that works with the water authority across the street that would have seen the kid or somebody yelling. And they were like, "Oh, we
Yep.
can't use that because it's hearsay." So they wouldn't let her say what my
Yep.
granddaughter
No
supposedly
preponderance amount of
said.
evidence. Right.
Yeah. So they
Yep.
did stop that, but I was kind of, that would have been like, I hate to say it, but I think my granddaughter was used. And then after that, she became
Of
very
course.
suicidal
Yep.
because she
Of
saw the
course.
destruction of what it did
Oh,
and the
God
kids
bless
being
her.
moved.
Ugh. And their support system for after when they come home is null and void. It doesn't even exist.
No,
If you are lucky enough to get your family back together, if you are lucky enough, once they come home, they don't stay involved in your life. They don't try to provide you with any sort of aftercare,
no.
any sort of true meaning to figuring out, fixing the problem that they broke, the problem that they actually created. It's disgusting and it's sickening and it's just got to stop. I mean, it's just, I don't know what needs to be put in place
Well, even
to
if,
do this.
being that the lady that adopted the two kids that we had, um, I can guarantee you she was involved in it because she was best friends with my sister and
Yeah,
or with my daughter. So what one knew, the other one knew. But I also
of course.
am realizing that her husband is sitting on probation for supposedly choking her, but he was the one that his case was 5 times the size it should have been. And I have
Yeah.
enough information
So is his
now
nose.
that I can prove that that wasn't the case. But anyway, if it does go down as a failed adoption, and we would be lucky enough to get them back, okay, we get them back, but now they've been away from us for a year. They were ripped out
Yep.
of here. Where's the trust? These are already
Yep.
kids that are
That's it.
prone to reactive adjustment disorder because, yeah, you have the kids that shouldn't be pulled, and then you have kids that should be pulled. And if they have already got some rats and now they formed a bond here and now you just ripped them from
Yep.
me again,
Then it's not, yeah,
the
exactly. It's not
permanent
fair. It's just
damage
a
that
never,
we're going to be up against, are we going to even be able to help the kids?
right.
Because there's
Oh,
only so much, and then there's a waiting list to get on. I mean, we sold our truck because we needed to pay for counseling for my daughter and I. So we have a 30-foot
yeah.
camper. We're renting a truck to take down camping for a week at the ocean now because
Yeah.
we've got all this money on credit going out
Right. Nothing. Yeah,
to
it's
clear
just
me. And
terrible.
we don't know
Yep.
what more we could have to refinance the house, whatever, you know.
Unbelievable. It's just, when is it going to stop?
Yeah.
When's enough
And
enough?
this COVID excuse, I'm so sick of hearing COVID.
Yeah.
You need to get these cases cleared up. But there's no
Yeah. Get
decision.
this shit moving through these courtrooms. Get
Yeah.
it moving because these kids have been waiting long enough.
Yeah. So May 16th will be 12 months since I was in court and they have not made a decision. Do you know what that says to me?
Wow.
My closing
Yeah.
brief was
For me.
typed up August 15th. They had the closing briefs done. If you haven't made a decision in 12 months, you're hoping something happens here because you don't know what to do because now you know I'm not dropping
Yeah.
this. That attorney
Right.
brought in somebody who was not who they said they were, and I'm not going to stop pursuing that.
Right.
I'm suing her. She should not have a license. If you cannot verify your witnesses or you bring in a false witness, you don't need to be sitting there.
No, you don't.
You don't need to be
None
a
of this.
lawyer.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
But all it was to them is they had to win their case. It didn't matter if they brought in the right person for the right name.
Yeah,
How would I know?
yeah. Securing that Title IV funding so that they can continue and your kid becomes a number for a fiscal budget for the following year. That's what it
Oh
is,
yeah,
and
and my ex
they
isn't
absorb
going
the
to
money
stop.
for they absorb all kinds of benefits from the Social Security Act, for the American Safe Family Act, all
Hmm.
of that stuff, and it's all just funneling through their pockets. That's what all this is about. If anybody thinks that it's about the safety and the well-being of your child,
It's
you're an
not.
absolute idiot. You can look it up yourselves. You don't want to believe us, like look it up. It's out there. The information's there. It's just up to you what you do with it. It's just terrible. I like you listen to your story. It's just like, and it just keeps going and going. Like once you're a product of that system, they've just got you. Like here you're trying to help more people, and they still are putting a stake in you. Like really,
Yeah.
like you got a perfectly amazing woman in yourself and your family, and the system has done nothing but screw you over and over and over and over, and you're not even having a good time with it. And now you still are trying to help people. Like it's crazy. It's absolutely asinine. And thank God, there's good people like you that are still trying to help these kids and that do need the help and need the system, and that you're willing to have the tough skin that you can put up with this crap that they put you through, but you shouldn't have to.
Mm-mm.
This should just be by the goodness of your heart. It's sickening, really is.
Yeah, and we've worked a lot with parents that, if I can give parenting skills to help somebody get somebody back, we've done that. Like, the one
Yeah,
case, there was a drug addict, and I knew she didn't have money to get her kids Christmas gifts. And I made sure that if one parent, that we had like we had more kids in the house. So you have like one parent might buy a lot for the kid and send it for Christmas. Then you might have another parent that can't do the
yeah.
same. So I actually went out and got the gifts and handed, so that it looked like the mother had bought gifts for him to open that Christmas.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah,
and not only
this
that, it was teaching the parent of what things to do when they came home. What can we,
right,
because we were okay. If the kids go back home, we're okay. But if they can't go back home, we'll adopt. We're not going to let them bounce through the system.
right.
And that was kind of the way that we operated. So,
Yep. Oh,
but
that's good stuff. Angie, I got Gene waiting to come on in, so I'm gonna. Can we do this again? Because I know you have so much more of your story
sure.
to tell me, and I would love to. I'm gonna talk to you after I'm gonna do this interview with Gene, and then I don't know, maybe tomorrow morning. Would you give me a call and we can chat? Because I got a couple of things I'd like to blow up your alley and see
Oh, definitely.
what you would think about it. So I would love it. I love the interview with you. You have so much more to tell. I wish that my Gene didn't actually show up because I would have continued with this, but he's been waiting for me. So, I want to thank you so much. But I will get in touch with you
Sounds
in the
good.
morning, or you get in touch with me when you get up. And we have so much more to work on together. This is awesome. I'm so glad that I met you, and I'm glad that we were able to
Yeah,
do
hopefully
this.
we can unite.
Um,
And I mean, I am working with, volunteering, because the county commissioners have a lot of say over CPS. And so when
yes,
you think that, you're looking at wanting to change laws, sometimes you have to start with who controls them at the very local level with
right.
things.
And that's what I keep telling people too. It's like everyone's trying to get to the president, and it's like, no, we got to take the community back. We got to stop people thinking that you're a bad person because CPS was involved in your life, and use that as a tool. Say, no, we're good people, and these people are the corruption, and start from the bottom, and then work our way up. Um, I mean, that's obviously you have some sort of. Does that work for you? Have you seen sort of
I have been
anything, or
very
is this?
open with the people that I volunteer with, working where I
Yeah,
do, going in for the office and opening it, and they're all on my side. They all say, "Look, this shouldn't have happened to you. We can see what type of person you are." The worst thing you can do is to sit there and hide like they want you to do, and feel this like, "Oh, I'm so
yeah,
such a low failure. I'm such a bad person. Oh my God, I don't want anybody to know."
right,
That's the worst thing you can do.
yeah.
Um,
And
you
that is
have
their
to get out
intentions.
there and let people see you, that you are not that person. That, hey, wait, she's got it together. She can run this office organized. She knows how to talk to people. Just
Yep.
the fact that you dress neat, that you have makeup on, that you go in and you're willing to take somebody to vote that just needs transportation to get there, and you don't
Yep.
care who they're voting for. Just get there, show them who you are, and they will see it. They'll see it. And then when they see it, build from that. So, if I'm out here helping somebody get elected for county commissioner and they see how hard I'm working, what my work ethics are. The other day it was raining
Yep.
and there was some lightning. I was still out there door knocking. Now, granted, everybody thought like, oh, this he must really be worth it. They don't know I love thunderstorms.
Right.
My life has
Yeah.
been a thunderstorm.
Right. Right. That's
So,
awesome. That's what I'm gonna have it next time when we're on the show with me. I'm gonna say, Angie, her life is a thunderstorm.
yep,
That's
it has been.
that's how I label you. Oh, that's great. All right, Angie. Well, I'm gonna talk to you in the morning,
Okay.
and we're gonna go from
All
there. But this
right.
is gonna be great. So thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.
Okay. Thanks. See ya.
Bye
Bye.
bye, dear.